There is a lecture of mine on YouTube, a critical analysis of socialism. It is an hour and a half long, and I gave it at the FAES, the Foundation for Social Studies and Analysis, in 2009, on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. The lecture is there online, and you can watch it at your leisure. For now, let us move on. Other consequences of socialism include discoordination and social disorder. Socialism frustrates plans and causes maladjustments and discoordination. All of the maladjustments, discoordination and violence you see in society stem from the public nature of any sphere, the forceful blocking of the free exercise of entrepreneurship, and the regulation of activities. This is true of any sphere, the labor market for instance. Furthermore, and curiously enough, the chaos caused by socialism usually provides socialists with an excuse to say, "Hey, this shows that the market does not work. More intervention." Thus, there is a snowball effect. I intervene, chaos results. And then I say, "There is chaos here. Obviously, we need more intervention." And the citizens, "Bah, bah," reply, "Of course, you fix it." More intervention follows, and more chaos. This happens again and again, in a process of totalitarian growth. It is totalitarian in the sense that political authorities seek to take over all aspects of society, a typical feature of socialism. The authorities strive to control and organize everything, and to infuse their ideas into society. Among other effects is the inhibition of entrepreneurial creativity. The socialist system blocks innovation. It blocks cultural creativity, and we all know that pompous ministries are created. The Ministry of Culture, for example. Can you believe that? What does Ministry of Culture even mean? What is the political criterion for giving a grant to a painter, an artist, a Van Gogh, a Cervantes, or a film director? The people awarding the grants may find the movies impressive, but those of us who go to see them, if the movies were so good, there would be no need to subsidize them. Anyway, if anything characterizes cultural activities, it is that we must pursue them in a context of liberty. We have to follow our human creativity down paths we cannot yet even imagine. How is someone going to successfully organize that from above? The Ministry for Innovation and Development is another example, and the High Council for Scientific Research. Blah! What a mouthful. Development. Research. The problem is solved. Spain, the leading country in innovation. We need only spend billions of euros and grant subsidies, and we will innovate more than anybody. Do you think anything positive will come from that? Also, on page 67 of my book, Socialism, Economic Calculation and Entrepreneurship, I address the harmful effects socialism has on the environment. Socialism typically destroys the environment. Where is Chernobyl, the site of the famous nuclear disaster? Where is the Aral Sea, which has dried up? Wherever well-defined and respected property rights are absent, the environment is destroyed. The only way to preserve the environment, and we will talk about this in detail, is to extend capitalism, company property, and generate legal principles to all resources now considered public. There is also the corruption effect. Socialism is corruption. I explain this starting on page 67 of my book on socialism. Why is socialism corruption? Because if our lives depend on those above us, who are in charge, it is not surprising that we should try by any means possible to avoid commands, and if we can, to influence those in power. The process ceases to be a peaceful one, of trying to detect the needs of others and to serve consumers, other people, in the best way possible, by selling the best products at the lowest prices. Instead, most of our ingenuity and effort goes to trying to influence those in charge, the organs of power, and to acquiring power in order to impose on others what is best for us. Habits of behavior cease to be peaceful habits of exchange. Montesquieu talked about sweet commerce. It reminds me of the old Chinese proverb, "A man without a smiling face must not open a shop." However, if you wish to sell, then smile and be friendly. Develop habits of peace and of voluntary exchange. In contrast, socialism, tacitly and implicitly, without our realizing it, instills habits based on violence, on aggressiveness, on attempts to acquire power, so that we can forcefully impose what is best for us on everyone else. And this is a deeply corrupting effect. We discover that we better achieve our ends if we spend our time taking part in demonstrations, lobbying, and trying to influence those in power and acquire political power ourselves. A process of power struggle gradually replaces the peaceful, harmonious process of voluntary exchange that is typical of the market. There is also a defensive corrupting effect. I remember that in the countries of the former Eastern Bloc, people used to say that corruption was not the problem in communist countries. It was the solution to problems. There was no gasoline, for instance. Only the members of the Communist Party had any, and to earn a little extra money, they would sell it on the black market. So people knew that in a certain tunnel in Moscow, anyone who wanted to buy gasoline could buy it. That was corruption, but it solved problems. Also, no one used to get planning permission in Seville, but people knew that the brother of a deputy prime minister worked at a certain architectural firm, and it could get permission for them. Thank goodness! Even though that was corruption, at least something could be built. Do you see what I am saying? The underground economy emerges as a way to get around commands. There are always extraneous and damaging effects, but on the whole, things could be worse. In Mexico, for a long time, there was compulsory military service, but people knew that if they paid, they did not have to do it. So, on the whole, things might have been worse. Once I was waiting in line to enter Mexico at an airport checkpoint. We all had our passports ready. Well, the man in front of me said, "My passport? Forget it." He took out a $100 bill and bam! They stamped his passport. He entered, and that was the end of the story. That is one way to enter the country. Do you see? The underground economy is another typical corrupting effect of socialism. When your entire life, your life's destiny, depends on the one in power, you will almost invariably try to do whatever is possible to influence that person in one way or another. Politicians themselves also become corrupt. Their main goal is to stay in power. They care only about the next election. A long-term vision is out of the question. They buy votes with whatever arguments they can to secure a temporary majority that can keep them in power, even with contradictory effects. And I do not need to dwell on this. Pick up a newspaper and read, and you will find the perfect illustration of what we are talking about. Corruption is also present in bureaucratic agencies. The authorities always channel their commands through civil servants and bureaucrats. And what do civil servants and bureaucrats want? To increase their prestige, to receive a higher salary, to rise in the official hierarchy, and to have more employees under them. All of that. They want to justify their presence. So they claim that a Ministry of Women's Affairs is essential, and that we must help or create an agency to combat, you name it. Everything is always essential. Has there ever been a case in history of a civil servant who has stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, after analyzing the objectives of my agency, we have reached the conclusion that the costs we are generating exceed the good we are doing. Therefore, I have asked my minister to dissolve our agency, and let us all go." Has that ever happened in society? Never. No matter how irrelevant his function is, a civil servant will always say that it is essential, that he is limited by the budget, that he lacks sufficient resources, and that he needs more and more and more. Are civil servants evil? Are they wicked? Are they demons? No. Civil servants are just like you and me. We are just alike. It is simply that in a context of bureaucratic coercion, incentives inevitably lead them to act in that way. If you were taken out of a private company and placed in a ministry, or here in the secretary's office at this university, your role would change radically. Do not imagine that you would go on acting in the same way. In a private company, you are risking your money. You have a profit and loss account. Your decisions will determine whether you succeed or fail. As soon as a person becomes a civil servant, it is all the same to him, naturally. He has a set of regulations, and what he wants is to be promoted and to finish work as soon as possible, so he can close the window and say, "Come back tomorrow." So, the pompous overextension of bureaucratic agencies, a lag in economic, technological and cultural development, and the underground or irregular economy are all typical.